Buckle up, buttercups. We've got Brian from Visual Disturbance with us, and a lot is going on in the UFO/UAP community. What are we talking about? Well, just a couple weeks ago, President Trump said, we're going to release all the UFO files because there's so much interest of UFOs and ETs and UAPs right now. And I think a lot of people thought, oh, perfect timing. What a great distraction. And I obviously thought that. I know many other people did as well. But you know what? Here's the deal. If he releases the files, that's awesome. So if that's what it took for them to release the files, let's look at them and let's see what these files are talking about, these UFOs and the ET phenomena. Is it ET? Are they aliens? Are they humans? Are they demons? Well, another report came out recently that said the reason they haven't released some of these files is because of the demonic influence or the demonic entities that are involved. So I find that fascinating, and that's a whole other approach that we can take. But we're going to do an extremely deep dive into UFOs, into the files that are supposed to be released, and the latest information behind closed doors as well as publicly with this discussion. So Brian has an excellent YouTube channel as well as Facebook page. It's called Visual Disturbance. He does great work. He's out there, I think in Kentucky, right? Or somewhere around that area.
That's correct.
Okay. And he has been researching the cryptid phenomena for years. And so today we've got some information about a general. This is very interesting. I want to bring this up first. A 68-year-old Major Air Force general or Air Force Major General went missing shortly after President Trump said, release the files. Now, what's interesting about this general is his connections with Wright-Patterson Air Force Base and potentially UFO/UAP technology. Also, something else very interesting. I don't know if you've heard of the Black Vault. It's a website that's been up now for over 10 years. And the gentleman that runs that website has a plethora or had a library full of Freedom of Information Act, FOIA disclosures, and him requesting certain information. His banks, his memory banks, that information was all erased. And he said, look, I don't know. It's weird. I don't know why this happened. It could have been a glitch, but it happened. And it happened shortly after President Trump said, hey, let's release the files. So we've got a missing general potentially connected to the UFO files. Millions of files that went missing by a Freedom of Information Act with the Black Vault. And some of those may be re-uploaded because I think he had a backup for that, the guy that runs that. But there's so much going on right now. We're also going to look at the biggest reports that are considered UFOs in the military community. We're going to look at that as well. So, Brian, it is great to have you on the show. Thank you for being a guest at Leaf Project. How the heck are you?
It's always a pleasure, Rex, to be here, and I'm doing really good, man. We just got back yesterday evening from the Great Smoky Mountains in Tennessee, and we just hanging out and having a little vacation and family time and getaway. So, yeah, it's been interesting last few months, and we just had to take a break and did a little relaxation in the Smoky Mountain region in a cabin and getting some coffee and looking at all the cool stuff out there in the Smoky Mountains. So, yeah, Rex, I am super thrilled to be here and excited, and I just feel real calm, man, and real relaxed and acting all cool. Got my cup of coffee and a cup of water, man. We're ready to go down the rabbit hole, take that path of the rabbit hole here on the Leak Project. So I'm just super thrilled to be here, man, and talk about the UFO phenomenon and the things that go bump in the night. And I always say on my channel, I'll say UFOs and anything goes in this day and age in 2026. And I'm looking so I'm just super thrilled to be here, Rex. Super thrilled. Thanks for having me back, man.
Yeah. Thank you. And folks, I paid him to say that. So check's in the mail, bro. Check is in the mail. Also, I want to bring up, if you haven't seen Brian's work before, you're like, man, those are, first time I saw Brian, I was like, dude, those are some awesome glasses. I love that. And it's not just for looks, though. Brian had a pretty serious accident a while back that it kind of impaired your vision, didn't it? Or what was it exactly that happened that kind of changed your life instantly?
Well, if we're going down that route, we'll just to summarize it here in a few moments. 2019, my life changed completely. I had a accident and actually fell off a truck, and it messed up my visual and let's just say brain and trauma. And it's something I've had to literally live with for the last, give or take, almost 7 years. And it's been an uphill battle, a lot of overcoming. I would say, if you want to look at the whole spectrum of things, the whole perspective, I would say I've had to endure and overcome a lot of things, overcome a lot of obstacles as far as the visual impairments to a certain degree. But hey, look, the cognitive abilities there, all short-term, long-term memory, everything is there. It's just I have a balance issues and visual issues. But hey, for one leg in it, if you would call that Kentucky terminology here in the redneckville of the bluegrass state, I think I've done pretty good as far as overcoming, but I have my days, my friend. I have my days, and visually drained, and that's why I called the channel and everything Visual Disturbance, because it's so fitting and so personal to my daily walk. So I've learned to navigate, and even though I've plateaued and it just, there's really nothing we can do about it besides just endure, you make things happen when you lose senses to other things. Your other senses enhance. And especially with when you learn different things of the world and your perspective, let's just say light therapy and light perspective, and when you're in the visual situations with vision therapy, it can change your life and make you see things differently. And I always relate to that in my Visual Disturbance channel. When you have something happen to you, you don't ever know what's going to happen. And we take things for granted every day. We take things for granted. And those of you all out there, I know people's out there that's got more infirmities. Some people are bedridden. Some people, God forbid if you're out there dealing with all these things too, or anything to do with visual stance. But you don't ever know when life's going to hit you in the face, literally. And you don't ever know when things are really just going to, halt your tracks where you can't navigate. And I will just say this, Rex, the first year and a half after that accident, it was almost borderline fetal position and turning into literally, I thought I was going to lose all hope. So I kept my faith and kept praying, and I kept enduring and just asking God to give me strength, because it was a very, very trying time, and it still is. But I just enjoy talking about the stuff that I've researched since 2008 and taking these deep dives long ago when I didn't think anybody would ever listen to me. And here we are in the visual disturbance realm now, and here I am on League Project. So it's there's a short and sweet version, and I hope your audience and everybody out there goes checks out Visual Disturbance, get to know who I am. I don't really talk about it much, Rex. I really don't talk about it very little, but since you mentioned it, there's a short and sweet version, my friend.
I really appreciate that. Thank you for sharing some personal information with us. And I think it'll help the audience that hasn't seen you before bond with you. And, I know there's somebody in the chat that's going to say, oh, what's up with his glasses? So that's why I wanted to bring that up at the very beginning, just to make sure, let's squash that before it even becomes a thing.
Visual, they're vision therapy glasses. I slip them over my prism glasses. I wear prism glasses, and it makes it hard on these screens, when you're trying to navigate through all these different lights and blue light filtering and all these different things on especially these new monitors. They can be very, let's just say, tasking on the eyeballs. So Rex, I didn't mean to interrupt you. So
no, thank you so much. And great points. And the comments are coming out pretty good. This guy says, I love 3D glasses. And that's awesome. That is so awesome. And you're a stud, man. And I got to say, you could have gone down the other path. You could have drank yourself to death, or, something along those lines, or just said, I give up. And instead you're using it to empower you. And I love what you do on your channel. You're such a kind person. Like we've talked off the air before, and you have a genuinely kind heart. And I love that about you. And so keep it up, man. And let's dive deep into this. Who better to dive deep into this and have a different perspective than you? And I think this is great. So the first thing we want to talk about, folks, this is where things get really interesting. We've got a multitude of segments, so you definitely want to stay in this podcast until we finish it, because I can guarantee you, if you listen to this whole podcast, you're going to learn something new, and I think you'll appreciate that. So the first segment today that we're going to get into is the when President Trump says release the UFO files, because people want to know. So here it is. Donald Trump announced an order directing U.S. agencies to identify and release files related to extraterrestrial life, UFOs, and unidentified aerial phenomena. The agencies involved in the review process include the United States Department of Defense and the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. The purpose of the directive is to identify classified UFO-related documents, review them for possible public release, increase transparency regarding the UAP investigations. However, the process involves classification review, which means releases can take significant time. Yeah, no doubt. I was waiting for that. But some of the allegations as to why these files haven't been released yet, some researchers claim that it's because these files have sensitive information, obviously national security information, but also the phenomena may be interdimensional or spiritual in nature. And I want to get your take on that, Brian.
You know, I've looked and read clairvoyant documents, UFO documents, people with testimonies in the past, and I've looked at a lot of the ufology stuff in the past too also, and the interdimensional concept, I do tend to literally navigate toward that direction. And when you look at, you know, the biblical account, the demonic, the angel account, and you think about interdimensional, but then you also think about hybridization programs, a physical context to it. I mean, you look at the things through antiquity with all these different stories, and you have to really sit back and take a couple steps back and really evaluate the whole perspective, the whole panorama, I guess is what you would call it. And when I think about this Trump narrative and the UFOs files being disclosed and what it affects and how it affects society and what is impacting, like what is really going on here, the searching out of this information, because it's hard to really tack it down and really say, okay, I'm going to staple this down. Is this legitimate? Is this factual? But then if you put all the little pieces together through antiquity, all through even the pre-Adamite realm, I mean, you look at that and you think about where we are today and out your way, you know, out toward the western part of the United States, you know, where you have all these petroglyphs, all these different things with the Native American, the indigenous people talking about literally star people coming down or spiritual applications of spirals showing up, clouds showing up, people coming and going, and there's Bigfoot, large like men, Nephilim looking like the type of creatures. And Rex, I'll just sum it up, man. I think on my speculative mindset and how I navigate when I think about things, I do a what if program on my visual disturbance. What if, Rex, that it's something to do with ancestral bloodlines or your blood residence, your blood signature, your frequency, or something to that narrative. Like, wonder if it's something that goes back to so long ago and your ancestral bloodlines are tied to it some shape or form, because I've always talked about the Nunahi, and especially out here in the Appalachian Mountains, and especially out there, there's some states out there toward the west too that talk about the Nunahi. And I just wonder, I really truly wonder and have to really think about it, Rex, are we literally living in some type of interdimensional concept? You know, we have this, you have your anatomy, you have your blood, you have your soul. And I think, you know, alluding back to the Trump disclosure, I think if I'm not mistaken, I seen on Truth Social when he was referring to this and saying, hey, we got to start dropping these documentation. I thought I might have seen him say Bob Lazar was 100% right or something to that. I might be paraphrasing, but I think he said Bob Lazar was 100% right. So when you look at Bob Lazar account, Bob Lazar was saying that we was containers for souls. So when you really think about that, are we battling spiritual wickedness, spiritual in high places? Absolutely. But are we looking at something to do with the ancients, something to do with the ties to your ancestral bloodline? And that's why some people are seeing some things like a Bigfoot, you know, like they claim it's Project Blue Beam, they claim it's, you know, holographic technology, they claim it's, you know, cryptid creatures, whatever the narrative is. And maybe it's a play on the mind, maybe it's a psychological thing, maybe it's we could go down so many different rabbit holes. I don't want to go too long on the rant here, but maybe it's something to do with your peripheral and your frequency or vibratory rate that you hear about in the three-letter agency documentation talking about these UFOs and aliens back to the Flying Roll. I think it's 1947. I think it was July the 8th, 1947, that he was referring to that in the three-letter agency talking about the Flying Roll. So, I mean, I don't know. Is there a vibratory rate? Is there something so daunting and so groundbreaking, if this information was to be disclosed to the public, that it'd be shocked like a shock syndrome. And I think that's why they're building us up through psyop after psyop, and there's trauma-based mind control right now. Like, if you think about it, this goes back to the 1900s, so we don't get too far down the rabbit hole here, but I think trauma, and then when you have trauma, I think we also have a psyche ability, like a psychiatric ability, the psychics. So like having some type of trauma and then demonstrating abilities to be psychic. I don't know, Rex, but I think that's kind of where I am when I think it's all about the blood, and I think it's about ancestral ties to these ancient entities. I really do think that.
That would explain, in my mind, why some people are abducted by whatever these things are. They're oftentimes referred to as the Greys. But, and doing this for 10 years, I have interviewed many people that are either intentionally making stuff up to get publicity, or they think they know what they're talking about, but they're wrong. And then I've interviewed some people that are extremely genuine and describe these experiences with what you could call the Greys, that there's definitely something there. They definitely experienced something, and they talk about it, and it connects with what other people have experienced that they've never even met each other. I'll give you a couple of examples. I interviewed a submariner several months ago that came out. He was very nervous at first, and I got him to come out and disclose what had happened to him. But he was making contacts with people that are considered the front page of UFO disclosure in the government realms. And he talked about it on the podcast. He didn't want to give his real name in public, but he gave it to me, and he showed me his credentials in the military, being a submariner. And he had these experiences for decades that scared the heck out of him, man. And the only place he felt safe was on the submarine, because they wouldn't take him when he was on the submarine. They would take him just about everywhere else. And the experiences that he talks about are almost identical to another friend of mine that works with, that has worked in defense projects and aerospace and missile systems. They don't even know each other. And that person the person I'm talking about in the aerospace that's had similar experiences, he hasn't came out publicly to disclose it either. But it seems to me certain people that are abducted are either working on top secret projects with the military and or certain bloodlines. Because I also have personal friends that have a certain type of blood, and they've got similar experiences, and their mom, their family, a lot of their family members have identical experiences that they did with these things. So, and it scares the hell out of them, because they do experiments on them, and in their mind, they get abducted from their house. They're in this bizarre, what appears to be some type of spaceship, and these experiments are being done on them. But when they talk about the experiments that are being done on them, to me, it sounds like a scientific thing. In their mind, they're demonic because of what they're doing to them. And I can totally see that, like, scary as hell. But when you really think about it, are they doing those things to people to scare them and to be demonic? Or do they need that blood, or that, is there something with the genetics that they're using for a continuation of that blood or that gene pool? And that's what I think. And I also think that certain people in the military that get abducted are being abducted because these things want to know exactly what they know. And they're like downloading it somehow through these abduction processes. But that could be one of the reasons the government hasn't came out and given full disclosure yet, because they talk about UFOs and UAPs a lot, but they don't talk about these abduction cases that are really frightening. And I can see how people can say they're demonic. Like my friend that was a submariner that came out and talked about it, he absolutely is in the biblical line of thinking where they're demonic. And so maybe that's why they haven't came out to do full disclosure yet, because if they did, and they said, oh yeah, people in the military, they're getting abducted, we can't do anything about it, that might cause some concern. What do you think?
It's interesting you bring up the submariner. My mind is thinking about something I looked at several years ago, looking at the Navy, U.S. Air Force, and I remember, if my memory serves me correct, it was literally 3 or 4 years ago, talking about people was on a watch list. Okay, it was like 6 million folks on a watch list. Okay, so it would be, if you served years ago or whatever. The account was, though, that really got me going is they all demonstrated they all had brain injuries, and I've had a brain injury. So it was interesting to really resonate with it on a personal level. I thought, okay, so I need to take a deep dive into this and dig into it. So there's individuals, I won't say their names, but there's individuals out there trying to treat these individuals with they have brain injuries or visual problems or something to do with traumatic experience. Or brain, any kind of trauma to the brain can be everybody is different. Your frontal lobe, your left and right hemisphere, anything can change. It just depends on the individual and depends on the impact. So when you think about hemisync, I know you're probably well versed on that, binaural beats.
Oh yeah.
Project Stargate, and you look at the military applications with this, and you ask yourself, your submariner friend that goes toward the biblical narrative, which I agree, I do this, I would go that route too. I do go that route. Submariner going into the ocean, and it makes me think, not to go down too far off the rails here, but I from memory serves me correct, a 1989 film, The Abyss. I think about the movie Abyss. I think James Cameron made and you look at the way the depth of the body. He starts hallucinating and everything. He even have the shield on to go talk to these UFO alien-like beings, and he makes it down there, but he almost dies. Like he literally, it's like the representation. It's almost like the Beth, Daryl, and Resurrection kind of thing, and it's almost blasphemous if you look at that at that angle. But when you look at it on the realm of like the flood. Noah's, I always say on the channel, Noah 2.0, we were in the days of Noah, here we are, it's the fresh reversion of it of our modern time, we have all these different things come upon the earth, but your submariner dude, your submariner gentleman, what if it's pressure? What if he feels more comfortable? What if it's the climate, which is the depths of the water? And if you think about it, we're made out of a big chunk of water. It was 70-something% or maybe higher than that. And you look at the submariner, the submarine, and what it's actually made out of. So we'll throw this out here for no extra charge, Rex. But my grandfather served in the Navy. There's a lot of weirdness beyond that, and behind that, I'm still digging into it to this day. He served in the 50s, and there's all this weird. I can't get certain information. I can't inquire about certain information. You don't really get all the pieces. So it's the vision thing, the brain trauma, the 6 million people that was on a watch list years ago, and I had this epiphany. I thought about trajectory. I thought about longitude, latitude. I thought about circuits. And I think we might have talked about this the first time you had me on the channel, circuits of the water waves, like their mapping, the topography, the way the ships flow through the ocean. They have certain places they can't go. They're not authorized. It's the same for aerial, navigation, anything to do with fighter jets or anything to that magnitude. We can always speculate how far we can actually go. And I've always thought, Rex, I've talked about, Project Stargate. I've talked about Lemuria. I'll talk about the ancient city of Atlantis. I had this thing, Rex, like, what if you look at the Eye of the Sahara, if there's any correlation with the Atlantean knowledge, or if the Lemuria, this ancient island or ancient continent that just goes and just vanishes. And I was thinking, is there a magnetic anomaly frequency that's causing brain injuries? And then in a lot of cases, these people have telekinesis abilities, like I was alluding to earlier, psychic abilities. They can remote view. These people are under the thumb now. They're being monitored and surveyed. There's so many different things that they either can't talk anymore, they can't see out of one of their eyes. There's so many different accounts with these testimonies. There's speech impediment, or whatever the case is, but they're demonstrating other senses, like I was talking about with my testimony. You're in heightened senses. So I'm thinking your buddy that's a submariner, pressure, the aqua life, you have to think about the marine life. You have to think about the depths of the ocean, and you have to take in consideration too, what is this submarine made out of? What's it encapsulated in? What is it shielding you from? And you hear this all the time in the news. There's submarines go disappearing. This has been going on for 5 years, 6 years or so, with the other countries out east. I try to watch what I say here on the platform, but they're always saying that we got some kind of hypersonic submarine or some type of Philadelphia experiment project revamped here in 2020s, and they're always losing or missing submarines. So it's interesting to me maybe that's how it goes. Maybe there's something on the face of the earth, the land dwellers, that with technologies like, you have the mind control situation, you have advanced weaponry that's just been real. It was the discombobulator that was used. I think that's what Mr. T talked about, Mr. Trump referred to in Venezuela. You have all these connections that they have weaponry, have technology that surpasses anything that we know of here as far as the land dwellers. And I really do think, Rex, there's something so groundbreaking with these UFO files that it's going to tie in technology. And then if you want to look at the alien card, that we have literally nanotech technology that ties back to antiquity. I think that's I kind of think that we are all just we're being, I use the term, bamboozled all the time.
Oh yeah, that's a nice way to put it. Bamboozled, putting it nicely. I do remember reading a report about some nanotechnology that was discovered in Russia that was thousands of years old, and the precision of this nanotechnology is beyond public technology. And I literally think it's tens of thousands of years old. I'll actually find that specific article and pull that back up. Let me do that, unless you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Well, it's interesting you bring the Russia card up. I do remember looking at 2015 where the sarcophaguses in Egypt, when they was in Cairo extracting those sarcophaguses of those ancient pharaohs, that they had, the term was the blood of the gods, and this black goo substance. But they did, I remember looking at it, it was either in Jerusalem, there was a news article that a scientist tested it, and there was nanotech in it that actually cross-references and matches the 2001 nanotech from military application. It was almost verbatim. It literally was matching. So you can take it for what it is and face value, but that's what I remember seeing that, and that was 10, 11 years ago. So, I mean, it's down the rabbit hole we go with this podcast today, but yeah, Rex, I don't know, I'm trying to remember the top of my head about the Russia one.
Here it is.
I'm glad you. Okay.
Yeah. No, and the rabbit hole is great, man. Who better to go down the rabbit hole with today than Brian? So tiny coil-shaped metallic objects ranging from 20,000 to 318,000 years old were discovered in the Ural Mountains of Russia in the 1990s. They were found in geological strata. These out-of-place artifacts composed of tungsten and molybdenum, I don't know if I said that right, are considered by some to be ancient nanotechnology. However, of course, they haven't been scientifically proven to be manufactured by humans. Check these things out. This is weird. And they're old as 300,000 years old, potentially. That's fascinating. That is absolutely incredible. Now, they do appear to have been manufactured, and experts have not definitively determined how they were created or their purpose, with theories ranging from advanced ancient human tech to obviously extraterrestrial origin. Certainly out-of-place artifacts, or what we call UPARTs. This should be front page news. Everybody should know about this, but this would absolutely take away the narrative if let's say the official story, the government comes out and says, yep, we found nanotechnology in Russia that's 300,000 years old, and we couldn't duplicate that today. That would change things a bit. That's incredible, man. I'm so glad you brought that up, because I'll bet something like that could be in the files. And if they are 300,000 years old, who made them? That's weird. Little spirals. Like, what's the point of that? That's kind of odd. I mean, I don't know what the purpose of that would be. Very bizarre. Very bizarre. Let's jump into segment 3 now, Brian, because I think that this is very peculiar timing. And folks, this is odd. I want to hear your take as well. Reports surfaced about the disappearance of retired U.S. Air Force Major General William Neal McCasland. He is the former leader within Air Force research programs, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, previously referenced in emails connected to discussions about UFO research. And he also, I think DeLong was one of the people that he was emailing, one of the faces of UFO disclosure. So authorities issued alerts after he was reported missing in New Mexico. He went missing shortly after President Trump said, release the UFO files. And I can give you more information about this guy, but I wonder, my thought when I read that was he knows something that somebody doesn't want him to release. And especially now with President Trump publicly saying release the UFO files, they're like, okay, they either moved him to another location. I'm hoping he's, at a nice place somewhere else. And I'm hoping he's okay, obviously, but that's really weird timing. Now, what are your thoughts on that?
I have this crazy idea just came to me, and I've looked into this. Have you looked? I think he went. What did he go missing? February the 27th. Have you looked at the meteorology data as far as anything to do with storms or any kind of storm activity over Albuquerque, New Mexico at that time? I haven't looked at it. Just dawned on me.
Okay.
And the reason why this is going down this huge conspiracy toward this is I've looked a lot into Bermuda Triangle. And the whole principle behind the term dark lightning, it's a rare phenomenon, and it actually can happen. And there's actually a TV show out there, TV series Manifest. They talk about dark lightning. You can look it up, and they actually throw out the little nuggets of information that you can go look it up in scientific data that actually presenting to you dark lightning. And I just thought of it, this individual here, this general McCaslin, if there's something there with a weather anomaly. And I wonder what he knew, and I wonder if there was any orbs in the sky over that area. And then if you think about it, Rex, I think you did some shows on this just recently, some broadcast talking about the mystery I think it was wasn't it in New Mexico? Wasn't there mysteries over in the, I think there were certain air spaces closed. I think there were certain things going on over in Texas. And it just makes you wonder, in February the 27th, really what happened. I think they said he went missing around 11 a.m. So it's the morning time. You know what I'm saying? You would think it would be at night. You'd think it'd be like, even at whatever, dusk or something, and either if he's been abducted or they were claiming that if he had some type of mental problem or whatever. And there was speculation online where people were saying, especially the higher-ups are saying that it wasn't nothing that he had like a medical emergency or medical issue. They keep saying there's some type of medical thing. I've looked into it a little bit. That they're saying he had some type of medical condition. So what if it's not that? What if it's something to do with the term in the e-files that's just been dropped here recently? They're talking about the term time travel, and they're talking about Project Looking Glass. And it's almost like the 68-year-old veteran here, this general, what kind of knowledge did he have? Did he have something that could go back to the days of old, this Project Looking Glass? That's kind of where I'm going with this. I know it's all speculative. There's no evidence to really tighten down. But could it be, coincidence, and I don't think it is, that the UFO disclosure has been really hyped up here in 2025 and 2026, and then all of a sudden UFO disclosure with Trump, talking about this certain speech that he was supposedly going to have in, I think it's July the 8th of this summer, and then all of a sudden this gentleman just, mysteriously vanishes. I think there's a UFO scenario, and I've talked about this all the time, in that area out that way. Was it the TR-33s? I think it's the TR-33s in the Triangle Crafts.
Yeah.
3B. Excuse me. I always say, I said 33.
That's the next version.
That's the high-tech version. 3B. I didn't mean to say that, but I thought that's the first thing at the top of my head. But 3B, you see a lot of information out there. Forensics folks, Bigfoot folks are looking, Bigfoot researchers, ufologists are looking out that area and saying these TR-3Bs are showing up all over the place. And they claimed that it was to do with the cartel, claimed that it was super, the super advanced technology the U.S. had. I think it's a breakaway civilization. I think we have technology that far perceives us in our mind. I think we are looking through a foggy glass. We think that our reality is all pertaining off of what people tell us, but I think there's people out there, breakaway continents or however you want to call it, whatever terminology, that far precedes us in our way of technology and advancements and even language barrier. And I think with AI and everything that we're getting the crumbs, so to speak, if you want to use that analogy, I think we're getting crumbs of information. So whatever this individual, we can go down and I'll get your take some more on this, but this individual had to have some high class, high authority, and they needed him for something. And for 68 years of age, I think that's his age, wasn't he managing, if I'm not mistaken, I think I'm reading here, managing a $2.2 billion science and technology program. So,
ooh, I didn't know that. Thanks for bringing that to my attention.
Yeah, so that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money on the table and a lot of knowledge. And if he had his high credentials, something is afoot here, Rex. Something's definitely afoot.
Well, so yeah, and let me tell people a little bit more about this gentleman. The missing person being reported, retired U.S. Air Force Major General William Neal McCausland. He was reported missing in New Mexico. Authorities issued a silver alert sighting. Oh, so they're making it sound, oh, he's just, he's old. He forgot where he was, so we're going to have a silver alert. But here's why UFO circles care. Reporting notes he formerly led major R&D roles linked to Air Force research, and the Wright-Patterson is culturally tied to UFO history. Plus, he was mentioned in the 2016 emails connected to Tom DeLonge UFO advocacy claims. And what you just mentioned, that project, that $2 billion project that he's overseeing. Wow. Absolutely incredible. Very, very peculiar timing.
But it's interesting. It's interesting that number shoots out to me. 2016. I remember very clearly. I was actually working a milk route. That's what I used to be. My occupation used to be a milkman, but no longer a milkman.
So cool.
Just some guy from the bluegrass state, folks. But yeah, so I remember very specifically listening to this data. I think it was not on a podcast, but the news was broken. 2016 in Russia. Since you brought up the Russian account earlier, that I think there was some pyramids that was found in Crimea on the shoreline. There was some pyramids under the water. And I remember Mr. Putin claiming that whoever controls the technology, whoever controls this ancient place, whoever controls the AI will control and dominate the world. So it's interesting that was in 2016. That kind of mirrors and the similarities of everything, the time and date of that. The 2016 really resonates with me. What's going on here? Do we have a faction of a faction of a faction of folks, and it's breakaway technologies? Is this go back to the 40s and the 50s where they literally are navigating in that time of that transition time of like individuals breaking off and actually building advanced cities of a dystopian future for us? What is it? But 2016 rings a bell with me, Rex.
Yeah, because 2016, that's when Haim Eshed comes out, and he's retired Israeli aerospace engineer. I mean, he's got credentials that go on for, like a book of credentials. So if anybody knows about ET disclosure, it's going to be Haim Eshed. And some people think he's misinformation, and he could be. But he also described in 2016 how there is an advanced civilization on Mars that's underground, and they're working with certain factions of humans, and they're not ready to make themselves known yet, but President Trump knows about it. So this disclosure movement started 10 years ago. And that's right around the time of certain UFO files being released and the publicity stunts in the media about UFOs and extraterrestrials. So it's definitely a coordinated effort. Now, whoever is controlling this coordinated effort, I do not know, but I think my gut is telling me that it is a civilization. It's a breakaway civilization. And these people, these beings are much older. Like, they have lifespans that are indefinite. They've been able to reverse engineer their lifespans to where they can extend their lives. And we're getting to that point now. There was a article I read the other day where the FDA is actually doing some studies on potential reverse aging, which is fascinating. And if a civilization has the ability to travel the stars and build some of these megaliths that we see on Earth right now, they're thousands of years old. The ones I'm thinking about in particular, besides the Great Pyramid, the Cheops Pyramid is definitely one of those. And the civilization that they scanned underneath it, or not the civilization, but the structures, but also some of these temples in India and Cambodia and Angkor Wat that look like they were laser precision carved. Hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands of these identical sculptures in the rock that there's no way there's somebody out there with a chisel going, yeah, this is day 5,000 for me and I'm working on the 50th. There's just no way. It's just precision to a T. And so if they had the ability to make those megaliths and they can travel the stars, they definitely have the ability to extend their lives. That's where my mind's going with this. And so when we think about the potential of time travel, that would make a lot of sense to me, because there are reports of these grays going back thousands of years if you look in the right place. They didn't call them grays back then. They had a different name for them. But
Manikwabu.
Yeah. Yeah. And they appear to show up out. They appear to show up like they're interdimensional, like they vibrate into physical being. My one good friend, aerospace engineer, multiple DoD projects, hasn't came out publicly to disclose this yet. But when he's talked to me off air about these things, he gets really emotional and he says, Rex, you can absolutely grab these things, and they don't like it. He says they're physical. They'll show up, like vibrate into reality. And like he would sleep with his gun next to his bed because he was so frightened by these things. And he said they would paralyze him, so he wouldn't be able to move. But he figured out how to break out of that one time, and he grabbed him. And he said they haven't visited him that many times since then. He said they didn't like that. And I said, well, yeah, I could see that. So it's just incredible to me with all of these independent testimonies of people that have experienced beings that are definitely non-human and how much it frightens them. But then I've talked to other people that are not only frightened by them, but also fascinated by them and claim that these things have helped heal their family and themselves. And one person in particular, she said she had to drink like this metallic goo one time when she was on the table. And I had brought that up to somebody else, and they said, oh, metallic goo. That sounds like stuff you take if you have to go in for a colonoscopy or something. And I was like, holy shit, you're right. It does. And you've heard reports of people that have been abducted by things that they call the grays, but they've seen what looks like military personnel there as well. Dr. Jacobs has done dozens of regression sessions with people totally free, and he claims that these people talk about when they make contact with certain beings like the grays don't understand why they do what they do. So they ask them questions like, well, why did you walk across the street? Why is there water coming out of your eye? Why? They just don't get it. And that would make sense if, they could be totally advanced in technology, but when it comes to human psychology, if they're not us and they don't have the same consciousness that we do, they're like, well, I need to understand this. And if they're trying to infiltrate through some type of hybridization program by capturing certain DNA and then, creating people on a spaceship somehow and then planting them back to Earth, that's pretty wild to think about that type of potential invasion. But if they have the ability to travel time, then they could go back at any time in human history and manipulate human history. And that might link the Mandela effect. I think that I still believe to this day CERN had something to do with manipulating reality somehow. And the reason I believe that is, do you remember the professor from around 2012, 2014 that had some formula on his shirt? And they're doing the song. This is a CERN video. And they're all dancing around going, and I'm happy, I'm happy, yeah. I'm happy. And then the professor has he holds up this cardboard paper or this piece of cardboard that has something to do with like James Bond. And then you go back.
The jaws, remember the mouth with the spikes in his mouth, the teeth?
Yeah.
Like this was referring to.
Where did that go? Like my dad has every James Bond film there is. And he remembers absolutely that scene with the Jaws teeth.
I do too.
That's weird. So what was their beta test? Well, let's just go back and let's see if we can manipulate this video. Let's go back and see if we can manipulate this one event and see what happens afterwards. You could probably explain 95% of the Mandela effect as just memory or marketing, but there's that 5% that just doesn't make sense that I absolutely question. So maybe we reverse engineered it from an ancient civilization. Maybe there's a multitude of species and civilizations that have cracked the code for time travel. Even the U.S. military, was it the Pentagon or the current administration that came out recently and said, look, we have technologies that can manipulate time and space. And they just said it all ho-hum. Like, oh yeah, we can manipulate time and space. What you going to do, sucker? We're with the government. We're here to help.
I remember that. I think his name was Michael Krathios or Krathios, I think it's how you pronounce it.
Okay.
And the time dilation and time manipulation and all that. And it's interesting, Rex, just the last few months, they dropped those e-files and they talked about the consequences of mutations, right? The biological consequences of time travel with the biological stance of the population, like turning us into mutants. Like, what would it do for the whole overall broad spectrum of the population? So you have to really process that. Like, what is that? And you think about food, water, airways, every type of environmental stance. And I'm over here going, when I'm listening to you talk about the testimonies of people being laid in like on a hospital bed or military application. There's grays, there's people, it's a military facility. They're making them drink this goo. It reminds me, the first thing I thought of is when I looked into, did a program with my friend on David, and we talked about the Tenochtitlan and the connections with Kukulkan and the Mayans and looking at the serpent worship and the Mercury. What was really honing in on, could this be these visions or these dreams that these individuals are having? Could they be not for colonoscopy, but maybe it's Mercury? Because there's this red element, there's a red mercury, there's this component of like breaking down and changing molecular structure of it. I've even seen that. And then you see what mercury can do with, floating of anvils and everything like that, demonstrations of that. And you looked at years ago, thermostats used to have that in those little vials, and it's interesting how could there be a tie to Mercury? Because you look at I think it was the Vedas. I think you go back into the days of old, the World War II scenarios and the Vedas, and talking about what Mr. Hitler was talking about, and the Nazi bells and all that, the vibratory, and having, they even claimed that bell was a time travel or some type of space craft of some shape or form that would vibrate out of existence and go somewhere else. There's all kinds of crazy theories and information out there on that. But it reminds me of a Mercury connection. I just can't. When you said goo, I'm like over here going, is it like a shiny goo, like a silver color, like a chrome color? Could it be Mercury? I mean, Rex, I know we're going a little bit far off the trail, but don't want to get too far in the weeds. But could there be a connection there where there's an altering, a biological component, and there's a teaching, there's an altering, there's an abduction theory, where there's a sleep paralysis, where people have demonstrated they're vibrating, they're completely locked in, they can't move their arms, they learn, they like your friend that had a weapon. Is it something to do with your consumption of certain foods, a bovine? You could look at the blood of a cow. I mean, there's so many different quantum theories on that. I've heard bovine blood has a resonance of abundance of it. There's a quantum field that resonates with it. And then there's my Thomas Winterton from Skinwalker Ranch. I know of him. They've done research at the Skinwalker Ranch talking about that. Like they're studying that, and buckets of bovine blood, that the ripple effect. So there could be all kinds of different things with biological mutations of humanity, and there's be testing and saying, can this person emanate? Can they be able to surpass the anatomy of what we're really subjected to with nuclear and gamma rays? I think about the TV series Lost with was his name Desmond, where they had the coils and they're like he's jumping and they see a flash of light and he alters this, he hits the button and all of a sudden he just zaps and he has amnesia and he comes back and he's like, I don't know where I'm at, but I'm okay. So it almost makes you think there's a time travel capability with the Lost series, absolutely. But are they doing that? Is that subliminal messaging to teach us a thing? And they're literally saying, hey, humans, hey, indigenous folks, you useless eaters. I shouldn't have said indigenous, forgive me. But that's how they look at us. That's how the elites look at us, like they were not worthy. And maybe there's something all there collaborated, what I just say, with my Kentucky flavor on it. But that's my take on that. What if it's a mercury component, Rex? What if it is?
Man, I mean, I would think though, if what they gave her was mercury, that it would probably have killed her. Like,
well, that's true. That's true. But I'm saying, like, wherever they took her, what if it's shielded. I was thinking your friend, the submariner, the location and altering the environmental stance her body could sustain. It could be underground. I'm thinking like those terms: underground, pressure on the body, the sleep paralysis, like she's that she's sedated or whatever, but she can see it, and there's a changing, and then when they pull her back, however they do that, the abduction stance, and when she's walking around, it does something to her biology, like her whole genome. I'm thinking more along the terms of that, and then she's able to survive, because I've looked into a lot of different things. There's a lot of speculation on there and conspiracy rabbit holes with that. So it could be something to do with that. Maybe I'm too far in the weeds here in the mud, but I know that it definitely would, a small amount can kill somebody, but I'm just saying in the right environment. I think that's where I'm kind of thinking location, the depths of the earth, and something can be done with the depths of the earth, and when you come back, you're able to take on certain things and have abilities. That's kind of where I'm at with the rabbit hole here. Mm-hmm.
Okay, potentially. Here's my theory on why these things wouldn't take this gentleman on the submarine, because you're underwater and you're constantly moving. You're a moving target. So, if you're in your house and you're sleeping on your bed, you're in one location. They come into your room interdimensionally or through some type of interdimensional technology. They abduct you. They take you to wherever it is that they're going to do these experiments, and then they bring you back to the same location. But if you're in a submarine, then you're moving underwater, and then they would, like, what if when they bring you back, they just miss it by a little bit. It makes me think of the Philadelphia experiment and the stories we're told about the Philadelphia experiment, how the military is working on technologies to evade radar, and somehow this submarine disappears, and it actually goes into a different timeline. And then when it comes back, some people are literally merged with the submarine or the ship. They're like stuck in the ship because they go in the future, they come back, and for whatever reason, the parameters, the geology, the physics, etc., that would be a terrible way to go, man. But anyway, so that's my thought on that. But what else I want to bring up also, which I think is very interesting, and I think that this might be a decent segue into the next segment here, unless there's something else you want to talk about with what we're discussing right now, Brian.
Well, just 2 seconds on this.
Yeah,
earlier when you talked about the black vault, kind of going back a few moments ago, talking about the Mars connection, and I remember a document that I pulled from years ago, the black vault, talking about remote viewing in Mars, and there was these giant beings. Plus, I think there was somebody remote viewing Mars with these giant men that was ruling Mars. So there could be a direct connection. That might be why they've been scraping through and trying to take down that gentleman with his black vault information. Maybe there's something that they're scanning for that he substantially would be groundbreaking for this UFO disclosure with Trump. Maybe there's something there, especially with the remote viewing thing. I know they just determined that, literally made that public a year or two ago, and nobody even batted an eye. That was through their agency, admitted it, and nobody's even saying that that's even possible still to this day. So remote viewers are out there. So could there be a connection with that, Rex? I just wanted to throw it in there before we move on.
Well, that's available on the CIA's website, their vault section. It's a declassified file. In the 90s, there was a remote viewing project that was not total, it was kind of an offshoot. Basically, it was an independent research, but they had connections with the CIA. Like the CIA was observing it. They might have funded it. I don't know. But I know that document very well. That's one of my favorite remote viewing sessions. And this type of remote viewing session, the gentleman went in blind. He did not know that he was remote viewing Mars. But when he remote viewed Mars, he remote viewed very large people on Mars, and he remote viewed. They were living underground in these these cryogenic chambers. They were waiting for their people to come back because they were looking for a place to live, because the planet was getting just destroyed. And the place that they remote viewed, this is where it's amazing. He remote viewed Cydonia Mars. Now, if you look up Cydonia Mars and the Viking orbiter images, the best images are from the 76 Viking orbiter. And NASA came out later and attempted to say, oh, well, we have updated images, which are computer generated images, by the way, folks, that make it look less like a face, but it still looks like a face. And they're like, oh, it's pareidolia. It's from the, it's the shadows and da 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 da. But it's not just the face. You can see pyramids close to the face, and that whole region that was remote viewed. This gentleman saw massive structures. Then he goes back about 1 million years in the remote viewing session, sees these massive structures. Then he goes closer to our time now, still probably thousands of years ago, and he sees them in underground. Their planets being obliterated. And he describes very large people, very tall, very skinny, which reminds me a bit of the Nephilim. And then he also describes that there was a comet in the sky that was the size of a planet, which makes me think of Velikovsky and his description of Venus, and Venus causing major catastrophes on the planet through electrical discharge, like the Grand Canyon, as an example, potentially could have been instantly formed, much of it, not all of it, but through electrical discharge. And if you study the thunderbolts of the gods in ancient Sumeria and Babylon and ancient scriptures, you can see that there's a lot of evidence suggesting that planetary interference caused certain cataclysms and then were deified as gods and demons and monsters. And I think that that's where a lot of the Babylonian rituals came from, and a lot of the sacrifice stuff, these terrible ritualistic things that we read about. I think that could go back to potentially what was seen in the heavens, and it frightened people so much because they weren't, that they were living the life. They had abundance. They were healthy. They lived long lives, much longer than we do now typically, and they didn't have scarcity. But something happened in the heavens that caused them to have to go underground and hide out, and that could potentially be linked to this cataclysm that is referred to in this remote viewing session that was done with Mars as well, and it obliterated Mars much more than it did Earth. So if that's the case, I love that story, man. Matter of fact, let me see if I can pull this up while we're talking. This is one of my very favorite CIA remote views Mars. I'll just pull this file up. Mars exploration, May 22nd, 1984. And what's also interesting, Brian, and I love this, if you've seen Total Recall, the original Total Recall,
Arnold,
get your ass back to Mars. Well, this remote viewing session was done prior to Total Recall. It came out a few years before Total Recall. What they saw in this remote viewing session is put in Total Recall. They talk about this massive pyramid that's about 1 million years old. In Total Recall, there's a pyramid that's about 1 million years old. And at the very end of the film, spoiler alert, Arnold makes it to the top of the pyramid, and it's like this three-finger button that he has to push. He pushes that button, and it creates an atmosphere for Mars, which is incredible. So maybe, I don't know, were they working on a technology to protect the atmosphere, and they didn't make it? They had to go underground, and they weren't able to finish it? I don't know. That could be Hollywood. But they do describe Cydonia in Total Recall. And when you read this, it's a short read. I would definitely recommend reading it. It's 9 pages. I've done multiple podcasts on this. You can go to cia.gov/reading room, and you can read all about it. And the exact coordinates to Cydonia, Mars are given. And I think this is pretty spot on, man. I'm so glad you brought up this file. And I also think that certain scriptures, especially the book of Enoch that talks about the 200 that came to Earth, I think that I don't think that they're demonic. I think that they're a highly advanced civilization that came from Mars, and they had to jump ship, and they knew that when they incorporated life on Earth, and they started to, I think they fell in love with Earth women, and they're looked at, well, they're demonic because they, like, dude, how do you not fall in love with certain Earth women? We've all been there, right? Like, it's tough, man. So that's my theory on that. And if you take the biblical approach and what a lot of people believe that are Christian, they're gonna call me a charlatan and say I'm way wrong there. But I think there's a lot more truth to that than they want to accept. What do you think about that?
Well, they don't. On that top of that mountain to this day, I'm pretty sure I've Googled Earth it. I've actually did a show on it years ago. If the UN has a base on top of that at Mount Hermon, they have literally, it's not too far from where they landed. So it's kind of interesting that the UN has that lovely laboratory. associated there in some shape or form. And then if you look at the spiral effect of, if you go look, the oath that the when you look at the Book of Enoch, the oath that the angels took, they taught mankind how to do, metallurgy and makeup for women, all these different things. And I always ask the question, when you look at that, where did they get their knowledge from? When you look at, they fell from heaven. The book of Jude talks about that. They fell from their first estate. It's almost like mirroring the Enoch account when the 200 Watchers came and taught these men and women. And, you look at the Genesis 6 narrative, they took wives as they chose, they bore giants. And like you alluded to a minute ago, they took wives. They took the beautiful maidens, from the daughters of men. So, and I think there's a spiritual thing, absolutely. Wickedness, absolutely. I think there's, you have the seraphim and the cherubim, the different legions, the different military applications that you would refer to if you're a human construct. We look at military applications in a way, but angels and stuff taught that to mankind. So there's kind of things that you have to really kind of focus on and really be lighthearted on. But when I think about the Book of Enoch, I think about Stargate, I think about a portal, I think about knowledge coming from a place, and the 200 Watchers was led by a certain individual, and I think it's Aziel. Is it Azrael or Azazel? I think I always butcher it. And I think there is, I always mention this verse on my channel, Ephesians 6, verse 12, talking about the principalities, wickedness of darkness. I think there's good seraphim, good, bad cherubim, good seraphim, bad seraphim, vice versa. I think there's a mixed bag, and it's hard to navigate it down. And when you look at the biblical narrative, which ones are bad or which ones are good. And then a lot of them in the Book of Enoch, it tells you who's good, who's bad, and there's a lot of different things to go down that rabbit hole. But the congressional stance of everything, Mrs. Paula Luna is, Anna Paula Luna, forgive me, she's referred to that many times, and even these guys are like, look at the Book of Enoch, refer back to the Book of Enoch, interdimensional concept. And I really do think there's something tied there, interconnected with humanity. But I would just say this, speaking of scripture and blood, like we talked about at the beginning of the program, when you have a Stargate, have a portal, and you have in that area where in Mount Hermon, in Shinar, you look at the biblical account, and the giants, they all started coming from that area. You look and really pinpoint down, giants started literally coming all over the place in that area. Different Amorites, Hittites, all these different tribes of giants started coming out of that associated area. So it's really interesting how that all plays out if you look at that and tie that back to the Book of Enoch. But another thing to tie in, the blood residents. You talk about Adam and Eve account, yes, but Cain and Abel. When we were talking about blood earlier, when Cain did what he did to Abel, Abel's blood screamed out, and God heard it. And you're thinking about God spoke things into existence. You're talking about frequency, vibratory rate, but God literally spoke things, and you think about the blood. And I think there's just something special about it, Rex. And I think, tied back into interdimensional principles, interdimensional concepts, could there be something, you hear fee, fi, fo, fum, I smell the blood of an Englishman, go back to kids, stories and stuff about the giants and Nephilim, and could there be a direct tie to smelling the blood? And then when these things pop up, not only God, the creator, create all things, they can feel or hear the blood screaming. What if these interdimensional beings, good and bad, all point to one direction? Because you see this, I keep alluding to this all the time. I'm not, promoting this in some shape or form, but you look at the account at Skinwalker Ranch, those gentlemen are looking at something with LiDAR technology, different types of high advanced equipment. There's been huge amount of data that's been presented there at the Mesa. And there's a blood resonant component. There's cold and heat, gamma, different types of radiation frequencies. And it's almost like something's resonating with the human that correlates with the time frame, like time space continuum. You can go down these huge directional paths of whatever he says, she says. But the thing is, this stuff's been scientifically analyzed and written down, and it's accurately collected. So could there be a connection with the blood? And could there be a connection with the location, like you said, at Mount Hermon? And I think the spiral, you said something earlier about the spiral. You said something earlier about it almost, I can't remember what you said about this general we referred to, about the spring or spiral. And it's almost like the Native Americans was telling us about the spirals. Yeah, I think he was talking about the Indian temples. I think that's what she was talking about. And there's these spirals keep showing up through antiquity all the way up into modern time. You've seen some. You went to them, and you're all in your local area, and looking at the ancient sites of the petroglyphs and looking at the spirals. So there's something directly connected and shown by these watchers and by these angels that it's been going back through since the beginning. So I think there's a component of blood and timing and location, and I think that that's what we're dealing with today with the Iran and the Greenland situation. I think we're looking at physical and spiritual Stargate systems being reactivated, and we're in the dark. We're in the dark with it. But me and you can only speculate. Me and you can put our heads together and say, hey, we got all this knowledge, and we can collab and say, look, this is this and this is that. But we can plug in probably 4 different corners of each of the puzzle. But we can, it's going to be a very hard road to get to the middle and complete the whole 10,000 puzzle pieces. So that's kind of where I'm at there with that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I've been studying petroglyphs now for about 8 years, really in depth. I've been to many locations. When I first started going to some of these petroglyph spots with my friend Diamond from the Oppenheimer Ranch project, I was looking at a lot of these petroglyphs as extraterrestrials. And then he's looking at them as like electric universe cataclysms that took place that the ancients saw in the heavens. And then more recently, I've been doing some exploration on petroglyphs with my friend Angela, and I like to call her the petroglyph whisperer because she's so good at decoding these petroglyphs. And she looks at a lot of these petroglyphs in connection with the stars and the planets and the constellations. And I'd really like to get her on the show again to talk about it in detail, because the way that she breaks down some of these petroglyphs is absolutely incredible. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because I think it's a universal language. And I think that there are a lot of petroglyphs that sometimes we might confuse for something that it isn't. A lot of the natives don't even know what these things mean, because I've talked to them. Like, I've got some great friends that are natives. I've got a Hopi elder friend, a Zuni elder friend, a Navajo elder friend that I consider amazing people. And it's just unfortunate how much knowledge that we've lost when it comes to some of these stories and these petroglyphs. Also, yeah, my friends Jen and Scott, we went and looked at some petroglyphs in Arizona, and there's this one spot that's, we think, where the little people are, man, like the ant people or something. I don't know, man. It was fascinating. But here's what's really, really interesting about these ancient stories and these ancient scriptures that connect to some of the petroglyphs. There is a petroglyph in Siberia that is 7,500 years old to 8,000 years old, and it has a menorah, and it has Viking runes, and what looks like the tree of life potentially, or Jacob's ladder, which is absolutely incredible. What is a menorah doing in Siberia that's 8,000 years old? How'd that happen? I don't know, man. I don't know, but anyway,
reminds me of Gobekli Tepe. Kind of the same situation. Why is things here that shouldn't be here?
Right.
And the spiral that I think I've mentioned that and looked at that at Google Earth years ago and looked at the mapping of that particular site in Siberia. And I referred to Jacob's Ladder because I was looking at another island out in the middle of nowhere that refers to Jacob's Ladder. It's really strange. There was so many strange coincidences on that, and I can't even remember in the top of my head. It was like 4 years ago when I did that. But it does make you wonder why things are all in one location. And that's what I was saying earlier. Iran, they keep talking mothership. They keep claiming there's a mothership. The drone situation with the UFO stuff and these drones changing shape and changing into orbs. They kept saying mothership off the coast, and they kept referring to out there in Iran. And if you look that term up and you look at the Edgar Casey, clairvoyant, and he's from Kentucky too, believe it or not. And Edgar Casey was referring to the term mothership. And I think if I read some of his documentation, it's literally referring to the Akashic records. And I kept thinking, okay, so mothership, wars, rumors of wars, technological advancements, mankind not understanding what they're even looking at. When they see a rock, they think it's something else, and then it becomes, some type of ancient cloaking mechanism. I mean, there's so many different things that's been talked about in the last few years. I've talked about it with Mr. Van Durick, referring to things that are in our forest that literally resonate with certain humans that won't resonate with others. So it's almost like there's technology that's laying all around us, billions or trillions of items or artifacts, and we can't pinpoint what it is because it's an ancient nanotechnology. I really do think that, Rex, and I think that's what we're kind of alluding to during this whole podcast here. And there you go. I mean, it's pretty, like you always say, nanu, and we're living in the crazy times now in 2026, definitely.
Oh, it's X-Files meets Twilight Zone. I love it. It's amazing. It's awesome. And so last night, I started watching this new series called Marvel Zombies or something like that. And I was watching with Preston, and I was trying to find a cartoon or something that he'd like. He's 9, and so we started to watch this series. And dude, it's good. It is really, really good. Imagine Marvel characters turning into zombies. But the reason I brought this up is the episode that we made it to. So, spoiler alert, folks. I'm not going to give too much away, but I am going to give a couple things away. This one gal finds a transponder. And so this transponder is supposed to send a signal out to space that can save humanity from all these zombies. And so when they finally get the transponder, they finally find a spaceship, and they get out into space, and they turn on the transponder to send this signal out to this alien species, which is supposed to save humanity. And as soon as they do that, all these UFOs appear in space, and it's like a blockade. It's like a blockade of aliens. They're like, oh yeah, they're here. They're going to save us. This is amazing. But guess what? They were actually there to keep people from leaving Earth. They're like, get your ass back to Earth. You're not allowed to leave there. That planet's quarantined. And dude, I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it, because I kind of feel like that's Earth right now. Maybe the reason we don't know about our space brothers and sisters and super high technologies is because whoever's running the show out here right now is, let's just say, let's do the Star Wars analogy. They're on the dark side. And imagine, dude, if we had our full potential, if we were able to use all of our senses and 100% of our brain and use our minds and bodies and souls in synchronicity, we're unstoppable, dude. And I think that freaks something out. And that's why they're suppressing us and using trauma-based mind control and neurolinguistic programming and the media and everything. All these different markets and industries are designed to be in lockstep together to keep us guessing, to keep us thinking. Are we alone? Aren't we alone? Oh, extraterrestrials. Oh, they must be demons. Well, you know what? I'll bet you extraterrestrials think the same about us. Those humans, they're demons. So there's something out there at the very top level, or in the higher up in the echelon, maybe not the very top level, that seems to want to keep us in this, let's just call it matrix. And they're doing anything and everything they can to keep us with the thought that we're free to an extent. Like, oh yeah, we have free will. But if we were manipulated and genetically modified to think a certain way through generations and generational traumas and generational mind control, that's a farm, dude. We're in a zoo. At the same time, I think that every action has an opposite and equal reaction. So I think that every negative is going to have a positive. You ever heard the saying, no good deed goes unpunished? We're in a duality right now. And there needs to be shadows for us to understand the spectrums of light. I don't think that means it needs to be evil, but there are polarities and there are opposites. So I don't know, man. I don't know, but it's pretty wild. It's pretty wild, the situation we're in right now. And I think that there's enough evidence I'm 99% we are not alone in the universe. And this is, let's jump to the next segment here. This is the information talking about the Black Vault files that were erased. Like, I know this guy on Facebook. I follow him on Facebook. And when he came out publicly and talked about this, he said, man, my entire database was erased. And I'm not saying it's a conspiracy. It could have been an accident, but it happened. And the timing of it was wild. So This guy has been doing this for over 10 years, Freedom of Information Act requests, roughly 3.8 million files covering decades of declassified information on UFOs, secret programs, suddenly vanished from his website. This disappearance occurred shortly after a directive to release more information, like we talked about. Initial reports characterized the incident as a deletion rather than simple corruption, creating mystery around why the data was removed. John Greenwald Jr., the site is known for, he's the founder of the website, The Black Vault. He's known for using Freedom of Information Act to publish millions of pages of documents, including, as of 2022, confirmations of additional UAP-related videos held by the U.S. government. Also, what's fascinating about this guy is he sent out a request for information on 3i Atlas. And the CIA sends him back a request that says, or they send back information after his request that said, oh, we can't confirm or deny any of it. We're not going to confirm or deny any of it. What? What are you talking about? Is that to stir the pot more? Maybe. Or is that them saying, no, we're not going to tell you what it is? I've got a friend that used to work at NASA that absolutely believes 3i Atlas was some type of craft or actually retrofitted comets. Because if you the way he describes retrofitting a comet, he says it would protect you from radiation. It's big enough, it's massive enough, you know, with the right technology. It would be like building a base in a giant mountain. Oh, wait, haven't we already done that? But this one's moving. This is a moving mountain. So I find it fascinating. What do you think about this?
You know, just to speak about the Black Vault, I'm over here thinking, after all the years that he's done the research, did everything, all his credentials, got everything perfectly aligned, and all of a sudden this happens. The coincidence of this and the timing on it is impeccable to me, Rex. I mean, we're looking at all this UFO disclosure, everything happening. Me and you done 3i Atlas. We even talked about 3i Atlas, I think, the last time I was on here. All this stuff was going really hot topic at 3i Atlas back in the summer. Avi Loeb was talking about it. I think you even had him on as a guest, and you had these top tier people that have credentials that far surpass me. And it's like, hey, it's a craft, it's a comet, it's an orb, whatever it is, and then you have something to level. It's going to be like bringing new knowledge. It was even compared to the the Star Kachina. They was talking about the blue color, the emerald color around it, and referring to it in that manner. And that's really interesting when you look at the Hopi prophecy. And I'm over here going, okay, so the Black Vault is being hijacked. The Black Vault situation, after all this data has been collected, there must have been something very specific that they needed, something very specific that did not need to be leaked to the public eye. So here's the question for anybody out there, for entertainment purposes only. Did you download all the archives for the 10-year span? Did anybody go out there and download these mega drives worth of data? And do you still have it in your hands? Did it get erased from your server? Did it get erased from your Google Drive or whatever it is that you got cloud data? Did it get erased from your physical drive that is not connected to the internet or any kind of computer, and it's in a wrapped up in aluminum foil in a safe? Is it still on there? That's the question. And that's kind of where I'd be with just basic understanding, you know, like, hey, get some tinfoil hat folks out there and see how many hard drives you still have this knowledge on, you know, or some rednecks out there in my neck of the woods. Redneck ingenuity goes a long ways there, Rex. You can, these donations and everything they're talking about with these UFO phenomenon, give us a transformer off the telephone pole and watch us go. You know, there's a little fun entertainment purposes for everybody here, for a humorous plug in for the broadcast here. But rednecks can go a long ways, Rex, and especially if you got a very high IQ, you can make things happen. And so look out, breakaway civilization or watchers out there, especially those that are very analytical. So yeah, I just Rex, I just think the timing on it is just so profound to me. You can't time this any different. This should have been something you could hear about in 2020. They should have been doing something like that in 2020. You have the UFO being ramped up. You have the Gilgamesh thing coming back up. With the Nephilim. You have resurrection chambers. You've got everything under the sun coming into a focal point. And I'll just say it. I think 2025 was the great revealing, and 2026 is literally going to be the implementation. They're going to implement whatever this is that's getting ready to happen and transpire. It's very interesting, and when you look at it and you take a step back and just look at it, you're like, hey, this life is so interesting and so fun. What a time to be alive, Rex. You know what I mean? Like you people back in the day would be like, I wish I was here right now. So it's kind of like you have to just kind of watch and listen and observe. But this black vault, this connection with UFOs, it cannot be a coincidence that this is all being taken right now at this time of day, and especially in early 2026. So there's my take on it. It should have been done a year ago. They could have done this a year ago. So somebody with top-tier clearance of some shape of capability was there taking this man's work that he had acquired all this knowledge and had it in one site, one location, and all of his back. I think it even took the back. Did it take the backups up too? Didn't it take the back? I think that I read something on X where even his drives or his backup data was taken too, correct? I think he had backups of a backups of a backups, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, they took that too. So it's crazy.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. I'll double check on that, and I'll get back to you. I like how somebody says we should start our own breakaway civilization. I like that. That's awesome. Question is, where are we going to go? You heard about that breakaway civilization in Antarctica, and here's a great question. If there really is a breakaway civilization in Antarctica that has technologies that can completely obliterate our military, why the hell aren't they in the Bahamas? What are they doing in Antarctica? That's kind of weird, but maybe there's some beautiful tropics under the ice in Antarctica. I don't know. Very interesting to think about. But I also wanted to bring up, okay, we go back to Iraq. A good friend of mine named Chris, he's a retired Marine. He served in Iraq. I have another friend named Shondell that served in Iraq. My brother Rock served in Iraq and Afghanistan. And, they went through hell, absolutely hell. And to this day, it still affects them. The reason I'm bringing them up is because they're all very interested in Gilgamesh and Sumerian Babylonian artifacts and Stargates and Persia, Iraq. They're, ancient Babylon, that whole area was like the epicenter. That's where the technology was. That's where the high-end civilizations were, Egypt, etc. Like that was it. And maybe there is some truth to Gilgamesh. Now, as far as the grave, I know there was a Freedom of Information Act thing where an email was sent to Hillary Clinton about the Gilgamesh tomb. We don't have a whole lot on that. There's also a 2003 or maybe it was 2001 major headline comes out around that time that says they found Gilgamesh's tomb. Very shortly after, we're at war. I don't think those are the only reasons we went there, but I wouldn't be surprised if there are side projects, top secret projects where they collect those artifacts. If they're there, they collect that ancient information. If there is a Stargate, which I think Stargate, the original film Stargate with Kurt Russell, amazing. I think that's a documentary. If you're going to travel through space, I don't necessarily think you're going to travel through space in a spaceship. Maybe to go search for some asteroids or comets, but it would be much more efficient, obviously, and much safer if you could figure out a way to create a Stargate. And I think that's a real possibility. Now, I have heard rumors that there was an Operation Stargate in Iraq, but I haven't found any verifiable evidence of that yet. So that's a theory, that's a rumor, that's speculation, but it's fascinating. And now Iran. So maybe there's, and let's talk about this for a minute, Brian. I'm going to change topics for a second, but I think it's going to come back. I watched a clip, and I knew about this before, but my friend Chris, the Marine, he sent me a clip last night of Jordan Maxwell. I've interviewed Jordan a few times. Guy was an amazing person. He was always very kind to me. But Jordan Maxwell was talking about Kennedy, John F. Kennedy, and Abraham Lincoln, and the weird synchronicities between the two and the events that unfolded between both of them that just sounds so bizarre. It makes you think we're in some type of simulation, or whoever is running the show is not, they're not living for 100 years. They're living for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, and they can orchestrate these events. It's like a simulation code is the way that I see it somewhat. But you know about that, right? Like all of the weird.
I sure do.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah, I did a broadcast a couple years ago about it before the anniversary and the JFK situation, and man, the similarities on that. If you put it, page to page, butt them together, the 100-year gap and the similarities on it, there's no. It's just insane. I think there was 15, maybe. I think there was like 13 or 15, like. Similar things that happened to Abraham Lincoln and JFK. So it's really out there. I mean, there's really nothing to really, like you said, the Matrix, but it does make you ponder and say there's a 100-year gap. What's the 100-year gap for? It's just really strange. It definitely is.
I mean, you could even pull it up via Google. Just do a quick search on it. Type in 100-year gap similarities with JFK and Abraham Lincoln. You can pull through them right here. It's just, so wild. Both presidents' surnames have 7 letters. Lincoln was shot on Ford's Theater, Kennedy in a Lincoln car made by Ford. Both assassins, John Wilkes Booth and Lee Harvey Oswald, were known by 3 names, and they were killed before the trial. Both were shot on a Friday in the presence of their wives, and both were succeeded by Southerners named Johnson. Both focused on major civil rights issues. Lincoln with the Emancipation Proclamation. Oh my gosh, I sound like a moron. And Kennedy proposing the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Lincoln was elected in Congress in 1846, president in 1860. Kennedy was elected in Congress in 1946 and president in 1960. It's just wild, these spooky coincidences. And there's definitely something there. We could use a quantum computer maybe to figure it out, because quantum is 0, 1 and 0, 1 at the same time. That's wild. That is so wild. So there's so much to reality and the interdimensional reality that we don't see. I find it fascinating and frightening at the same time. It's amazing. It's beautiful. That there's so much more out there that we don't see. That gives us, at least gives me, excitement for, oh, okay. So this is one, I'm seeing 0.01% of the electromagnetic light spectrum. I hear 0.01% of what's out there, and what isn't out there. Well, maybe I can practice enough through meditation and thought to see that and to hear that. And also outside of the human body, that'll be something that we could perceive as well. But let's jump back for a minute. Let's go back to some official government document, UFO document repositories. We've got the NSA that has a UFO FOIA archive, the CIA, the FBI, National Archives, Project Blue Book. But are we going to get the good stuff from there? Or are they going to have it completely blacked out? I think we might get some gems, but we're not going to get the absolute truth on everything. What do you think about that?
I think I agree with you. I think that it'll be just some breadcrumbs. We'll get a piece of the pie, maybe. And I think all this ties to something of a, we keep saying spiritual, interdimensional. And like we was talking about the JFK and Abraham Lincoln's situation with the presidents and the 100-year gap, I'm thinking, Project Pegasus. You go look at Project Pegasus and you look at the ties and all this. And what are we going to get? We're going to get some like new advanced technology. If you go back and look at, I was getting ready to do a broadcast on this in the future here, Visual Disturbance, but Thutmose the Third when you look at the account with Thutmose the Third, the Pharaoh, and I think it was 7 to 10 days, if my memory serves me correct, and there was these craft in the sky, and he was in, DEFCON 10, asking the priest and everything to pray, do all these different rituals to figure out what we can do. There was these, some type of Vimana in the skies, and that you can go look that up at Thutmose. And I want to throw this out here. There was advancements in military applications after that. Just want to throw it out there. There was advancements to some form or degree, even in that account. So we could, with AI advancements and all this technological weaponry and these weaponry, weapons, lasers, light spectrum, like you referred to, things you can't perceive, this dystopian future, this, type of Terminator / Total Recall future that is going to be coming down our way. I think it could be all tied to a system change, a reset, you would refer to it that. Like something's going to alter with what is coming, and we just don't know what it is, and I think it'll just be a slither of a pie of the bigger spectrum, of the bigger, let's just say, hidden, the hidden of the world that's been completely suppressed to just the average Joe. I really do think that, Rex. And I'm
muted.
Hang on. Okay, there you go.
Muted.
Okay, good. Okay.
I'm like, why isn't he reacting?
The glitch.
Matrix overlords. Oh man.
There for a minute, I was like, "Is he playing a trick on me?" Because we went from Gilgamesh to the Black Vault to I said something. I thought you. I was like,
now he's glitching out. What the hell?
Yeah, it's all good.
Man, I'll tell you, it's exciting. It is
absolutely. The Gilgamesh thing. We could go down the rabbit hole with that. I do know a lot about that.
Let's do it. Yeah.
The Gilgamesh account. You can go look this up. There was 2,200 documents that was extracted from Saddam Hussein's museum / collective archives. And you can go look that up. When the Hillary was inquiring about, with the other lady inquiring about the Nephilim and Gilgamesh account and where the bodies was found, that was just the subtitle of the email. There was 2,200 artifacts extracted from that also. And then, woe and behold, they was sold. Okay, they was sold in different auctions and what have you. But I do know this popped up a couple years ago back. The Gilgamesh's dream tablet was there. There was a bunch of, I think it was reincarnation and resurrection, so-called scrolls and artifacts that was supposedly back through antiquity to do with Gilgamesh. You can't make this stuff up. And then also there was a big corporation, big box store, big corporation. I don't want to say their name, but there was a company that had acquired these, and it was a Christian organization. They acquired some of these. Well, the Iraqi government actually just not too long ago wanted all that back, and they had to give it up. And it was interesting. You could look; it was all segregated and auctioneered. Tons of different people had their hands on it, but I don't know if they got every artifact back. But it was 2,200 artifacts to do a resurrection and reincarnation, and all tied to the Gilgamesh account. So when you really look at that and ponder on it, the company had these auctions or whatever it was that millions and millions of dollars, and who and what and how did this company acquire this? And it's kind of ironic when there's a UFO or a UFO shoots up UAP, and they say they have to spend a 400,000 projectile rocket missile to take down a weather balloon or take down a hobby. I'm not kidding. They said this years ago, a Hobby Lobby balloon or a car salesman balloon. And if you go look that up, that is a wordplay. They're coding it. It means vessel. It's code naming. Okay, but a vessel or a craft of some shape or form. So this is Crazyville. This is crazy lunaticville, like when you think about it, because darn well $400,000 missile taking down a balloon that you can go buy at just a party shop. is not, we're not, they've literally made us out to be morons. They think that we're not incapable, they think we're incapable, that we're not even capable of actually even articulating what's going on. So I think with all the wordplay and everything, I think they're still going on full circle. Like you're saying, they're collaborating ancient data, collaborating it to do something, to either, like you referred to, the 1994 Kurt Russell film of Stargate. I agree with you. I think it's a documentary, 100%. I think they're looking for ancient Stargate systems. I mean, heck, I'll just tell you something to just kind of break the ice here. For a couple of years, I was on X saying, Elon, where's the Stargate coordinates? I kid you not. I used to kind of troll him a little bit. Forgive me, Elon. But I'd be like, give me the Stargate coordinates and see what this old Kentucky hillbilly can do. I said, watch him work. And I got you not. And I think he might have seen it, but it was really comical. And a lot of people was like, get this moron off the X page, you know. I was like, just give me the Stargate coordinates. And I said that for maybe a couple years and never got a reply back, obviously. But I really do think that there's powers that be are looking at ancient artifacts, ancient antiquity to formulate something to open up some type of Stargate knowledge, something of antiquity, what these ancients, what these fallen, what these angelic powers have left us. And I think they're trying to open up something and to bring something in or take something out. You got to look at it like that. That's the terminology they use at CERN. So we have to really think open-mindedness on this topic. It's really out there. But yeah, Rex, what do you think about that? 2,200 documents or within documents, artifacts taken out of that to museum/vault and the Iraq account, and they had to give them back. The Iraqi government wanted it all back. So what do you think about all that? There's something here very interesting to ponder on.
This is just what came to my mind. I could be way wrong here, but I'm speculating the CIA or a clandestine group sent troops out there to get anything pertaining to God or resurrection or ancient technologies. That way they could go through everything and see if they could find anything relating to true resurrection or ancient technologies that could potentially be reverse engineered for the military. I mean, if they could figure out a way to reincarnate or reintegrate somebody, that would be a game changer. If they could find DNA of these ancient gods, and I'm not talking capital G, I'm not talking divine providence, I'm not talking creator of the universe, I'm talking very powerful beings. If you go and read the old cuneiform tablets, they describe gods more like a title. There's many gods in the ancient tablets, many, many, many. It's not a monotheistic deity. But then you have to say, well, what does God actually mean? What does that actually mean? What's the definition? And what was the original definition? And how many times has that been changed? I don't know. But I'm very careful when I refer to gods and the creator of the universe to let people know I'm not talking about the same entity. You know what I mean? Because it kind of, some people get upset about that because of their beliefs. And I appreciate that. I respect that. I mean, I was raised Christian. I was baptized Lutheran. I went to church. It was, you know, I really lacked parents. So nothing fundamentalist or anything like that. My parents gave me the opportunity to believe in what I wanted to believe. And they didn't force beliefs down, you know, into my mind. But I can see how that can cause confusion if you are talking to somebody that has a completely different spiritual and religious belief, and then there can be conflict. And that, to me, once again, now we've got more division. We've got more confusion. I think a lot of these deities and entities that are referred to as demonic and satanic and you want to call them Luciferian or whatever, first of all, you don't even know what the definition of Lucifer or Satan is if you're comparing them all together. But I think a lot of these deities that are referred to as demonic, they're not demonic, but if people can make you think they're demonic, you're not going to do, you know, you're not going to want to really do the research because you're going to be scared. Or another example, are there times that the powers that be will say, don't enter this location because of radiation or because, you know, there's something toxic in the air there. But in reality, they're saying that to scare you away so you won't even do the research. Like the upside down star, as an example, the pentagram. It was originally nothing at all nefarious or demonic. It's actually feminine. The planet Venus orbits in a pentagram. That's not evil at all. The problem is you've got evil people that'll take these symbols and they will reverse these symbols, and that to me is evil. To take a symbol or a number or a deity and reverse that and polarize it into something negative and dark and demonic. That to me is the evil part, not the pentagram, not 666. Actually, I think, and people may not, I think 666, the original number, was nothing at all demonic or scary. Yes, in Revelation, it says the number of man is a beast. The number is 6 threefold. Okay, well, does that mean that it's evil? Well, when you look at devil, like people that say they're devil worshipers and they do sacrifices and they post out the number 666, and you're like, oh shit, man, that's evil. But it was reversed. Actually, if you study numerology and star charts and graphs in medieval gematria, and they create these things called magic boxes. And the sun, our star in our solar system that gives us light and life, if you look at that box, that magic number, it's 666. So does that mean the sun's evil? Well, certain people think so, but it was demoralized, it was demonized. And that's what a certain faction is doing right now very good through certain ideals and ideology, is creating fear in the masses and reversing what could be sacred. And like 13, the number 13, it's a sacred number. It's a feminine number. But oh no, Friday the 13th is evil. 13 is evil. And I can see why the Freemasons look at it that way, because the amount of Knights Templar that were burnt at the stake on Friday the 13th. So it's turned into this evil day, but it's not evil. It's sacred. What do you think about that?
I'll just say this, like earlier we was talking about certain things with the human stance, the blood resonance, and I even mentioned God earlier. I'm referring to what I believe, the core beliefs I believe, and I think about, what do they want? Is it a prison planet? There's these entities, are they trying to take over and keep us here, like you alluded to earlier? Hey, get back down to earth, don't leave there, that kind of thing. And I think about the number 666 and the biblical narrative, like you referred to, and I think at the end of the day, when you look at our image, who we are created, our divinity, like our divine, our calling, like who we are, who created us, God, the Godhead, right, created us in his image. And you have to think about it like that. We're special, and we have a specialness of our soul. Some of us do. Some of us are human, some of us. And I think with all these, psyops after psyops, and like you're saying, like manipulation of the mind, your cerebral cortex constantly being inundated with like fear mongering and like taught these different things and saying this is bad, this is good, this is bad, and then before you know it, you don't know which way to go, you don't know which way to turn. And I think that's where our society is, Rex. I think people are literally coming into they think they have understanding on things, and it becomes derailing. How they actually talk themselves out of like how special they are, like how truly they are, like the true human ability to be here and how far they've gotten here. And I think that it comes to just down to the core of it, to be appreciative and have faith and be very thankful in every walk of life and every facet. Like you just enjoy our breath of life and enjoy understanding that we don't know what really is going on, but we know that our God has literally gave us the ability to live here, and whatever's coming down the pike, these demonic entities, celestial, terrestrial, whatever they are, the angels, the fallen, they are watching. Regardless of what it is, they're watching, they're observing, they're wanting to be like us, Rex. I think that's what it is. I think they really want to be like us, and they crave it. And then they throw us like the toolbox of like goofiness. They think, well, they're just deranged, useless eaters. Let's give them the scraps. Let's give them food and circus. You know what I mean? I really do think that they are just manipulating us like the Truman Show. And if we really just hold fast and really just focus on humanity, like focus on what we need to do to change and be better humans, and allow God to lead our steps, it can be groundbreaking. You can do so much good just on an individual basis, on just anybody you walk into their life, or just walk into a store or whatever and say, good morning, how you doing, where you been, whatever, right? And just be joyful and peaceful. There's just something about that can't be taught, obviously, but a lot of folks are just craving something. Like we shouldn't be marveling after so much that is, like you're saying, like, that's bad, this is good, that's bad, this is good. And then before you know it, you've outplayed and played into their terms. You're saying it's all dark, it's everything. And then all of a sudden, I have known people that have completely given up, like just completely given up because they don't trust anybody. And that's what's really scary. And that's like when I talked about earlier, when you gave me an opportunity to talk about my testimony, a year and a half in after I had this accident, I literally almost gave up. And I had to really seek God and seek things to really say, look, I can't give up. I've got a purpose. Humanity's on the line. I know a little bit. I know some knowledge is rattling around this brain. Let's see what I can do with it and see if I can literally bring light to the world instead of darkness, because it really, at the end of the day, if you teach negativity, speak death all the time, you're going to get those results. You're going to cause panic and cause discord and cause people to go down the dark path. And if you teach love and joy and peace and mercy and empathetic heart, people's going to be like, man, it's contagious, and that's where I'm at. Like, I'm just trying to be the light and shine the light and just rejoice that I've gotten to be living. You know what I mean? I could have passed away or died, so it's like, I just think second chance, keep it flowing, just be joyful. And whatever cometh, let them come, but I really do think we are being pulled like Pinocchio on strings, Rex. But I think that there will be a revealing. I think disclosure will be a revealing, and I think it will be a point to where people's hearts will give up. They'll fail them. Like, they'll be in pure panic. I mean, Rex, people are panicking now just over their favorite canned food on the shelf or something like that. They get so distraught over it. So I could see something great, like large, impactful ships flying over the sky, you referred to Marvel earlier, something like the Avengers on steroids. People are going to run in the streets and panic. You know what I mean? I mean, the stock market proved that back in the 1920s. People was jumping off bridges. So what do you think is going to happen when something reveals itself? Like these great revealing of cloaking tech or whatever it is, alien, UFOs. People are going to be completely, like I said earlier, bamboozled and really defragmented to not even know where they live. And I think that's why we do these podcasts. And I'm stoked, man, to be here. But that's my take, my friend.
Yeah, right on, man. Right on. And, I just wanted to show this because I was talking, they're actually called magic squares. I keep calling them magic planet boxes. They're called magic squares. And it's a really cool formula. So the way that this works is here, I'll just kind of give you the official. The planetary squares had disseminated into Northern Europe by the end of the 15th century. For instance, so basically what happens is the way that these squares work, these magic squares, is the number equals the same. The sum of the number is the same at the end of each section. So Sol, that's the sun. You can see it's 111. It's 111 times 6 because there's 6 lines. So each line is 111, and you get a total of 666. Mars is 65, and you've got 5 times 65 because each line ends in 65. So this is something that has been used for specific reference points and specific meditation practices, etc. It's a fascinating. They're fascinating. They're called here, let me just pull this up, magic squares. So if you ever get a chance to research this, it's pretty cool. And
well, this is wild to me. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Forgive me for interrupting.
No,
Rex.
not at all. Yeah, absolutely.
This is resonating with me. I haven't seen this in years. I looked at it and referenced it several years ago, and I kid you not, there was an old art teacher that I had in elementary school, and she had this for an activity back in elementary school. I kid you not. Rex. I kid you not. And it, just to throw something out there, I'm not going to say names to what she revealed. She used to teach us during Halloween. She would have us listen to her read the Book of the Dead. I am not making this up. It didn't dawn on me until I had to literally cognitively think back in my peripheral, like my cerebral cortex, but I really, in my memories, I kid you not, it was all throughout my elementary career. She and this is resonating with me right now. I kid you not, we did this in elementary. This is crazy, dude. This is crazy.
She was definitely into the esoteric and the unknown. When I say occult,
Wow.
I don't mean that in a bad way, because occult just means unknown. But the Book of the Dead, the Egyptian Book of the Dead, is one of the most powerful books you can get on magic and the afterlife. If anybody gets that book, give it the utmost respect, because it's like having nuclear codes, and you might accidentally push some buttons that you don't want to. So be very careful and very respectful with those teachings, because they are sacred. And I know from experience, I'm getting kind of spooked out just a little bit thinking about it. Very, very powerful. Very powerful. Wow, dude, that's wild. I mean, so you kind of went through some of that, not even realizing what you were being, what I don't want to say exposed to, but what was being presented to you at that time has to have a major impact on you now, subconsciously and consciously, because it just came up to your mind. So wow, that's wild.
Yeah, that was just right off the cuff, and I'm like, what? That's why I was really quiet, and I was like, I gotta interrupt him right now, because this is blowing my mind. Yeah, yeah. I mean, there you go. That tells you a lot about Kentucky, right? Where the bluegrass grows, and anything goes.
You wouldn't think it. I mean, Kentucky's more of like a Bible Belt state typically, isn't it?
Well, it depends on where you land.
Okay.
but yeah, but it really is. It really is. There's good folks out here, but I began to wonder, my friend, that really got me on that one. And I'll just tell you, like in my area, we'll have to do a broadcast. I'm gonna do one on my channel, but the GATE program, huge around here, big time in the 80s and 90s, big time.
Are you talking about the Monroe stuff?
Yes, the GATE program. I'm telling you. That's for a whole nother broadcast. Unbelievable. And especially when you're just showing me that, just thinking, it just triggered memories as a child. I kid you not. And I mean, that's pretty scary. I'm pretty sure I was introduced to that. I think we did start doing it in 3rd grade all the way to 5th. Unbelievable, Rex. Unbelievable. Live on live television. You stumped me on that one. And anybody that's followed me for a long time, I just don't be like, hey, I just don't make something up. So it's like, wow, I'm stunned. I don't even know if I can speak the rest of the broadcast right now, because it's really got me, with the word flabbergasted right now. I'm kind of tripping over my own memories right now. It's really weird. This is crazy stuff. Yeah,
man, I just unlocked your childhood, man. It just came out. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, dude.
Crazy stuff, man.
You know, I remember some stuff from like elementary school that just in school that doesn't make sense. Like, why would they do that? Well, you know, it's weird. The Monroe stuff I find fascinating, and the like the binaural beats and the out of body stuff. I mean, I've had out of body experiences, and my first time that I remember having an out of body experience, I wasn't even trying to. I just popped out of my body. I did it twice in the same night, and it scared me so bad, dude. But afterwards, I started to study it and practice it. And I picked up a book called The 90-Day Guide to Astral Projection. I followed the steps and the protocols. And what's interesting is when you have an out-of-body experience, before you pop out of your body, you can physically feel this like shaking sensation. And the best way I can describe it is, imagine you've got a dog or a cat, and it likes to sleep at the foot of your bed. It's like it's itching itself or scratching itself or moving, because you feel like you're moving, but you're not. And that's what happens before you pop out. Well, a lot of people that have ET experiences or unexplained experiences with non-human intelligence, they describe that same feeling before the experience. So my theory on that is these beings know how to literally pop your consciousness out of your physical body to take you wherever it is they want to take you and do whatever it is they're going to do. When I was in San Antonio, I had one day I was coming home from work. I'm in the suburbs. I'm almost home. I'm a couple blocks away from home. And I see these anomalies in the sky that got me so excited that I bust out my phone and I'm like, look, what the heck is this? This is amazing. And within about a week of that, it might have even been just the day or two later, I remember I woke up at about 4:30, maybe 5 in the morning. I don't think it was quite that early yet or quite that late yet. And I could hear this sound in my house that was going woo, 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 woo. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? So I got up and I'm looking outside to see if anybody's mowing the lawn, if there's, is the air conditioner on? Like, what is this freaking noise? And that noise is something that a lot of people hear before they have an abduction experience. Well, now let's go back to about the same time in San Antonio. Within 6 months, I'm laying down and I'm physically awake, or I'm physically falling asleep, but my mind is still awake, and I can feel the same feeling that I used to get when I would pop out of my body. And I knew at that time, though, that something wasn't right. So I'm like, I stopped it. And normally I wouldn't do that. Normally I just go with it because I love it. It's like one of the most amazing experiences you will ever have is an out-of-body experience. It's absolutely amazing. But I knew, something in my mind's like, don't let it happen. Don't let it happen. So I stopped myself from popping out of my body. And I think that there was potentially something that was trying to pull me out of my body or whatever. I don't know. I could be way off there, but all of those things happening in such a short amount of time, very, very interesting. So, wow. Wow, dude. We live in amazing times, man. It's an amazing time to be alive. I'm thankful. I'm grateful. Every single day I wake up, man, I give thanks. And I think that's probably something everybody should do. Well, unless they're not thankful and they're miserable, but yeah, this don't even go down that way. Yeah, dude, what do you think about what's next? What's next for you, Brian? Podcast and visual disturbance? Are we going there?
Yeah, I don't know if I have anything planned for today because I just got back from Tennessee from our trip, but I do have a few things in the chamber. I was going to, like I alluded to earlier, I was going to be talking about Thutmose III and going down that big rabbit trail with military applications and the advancements whenever they account with these flying objects over top of the sky. So tune into that if you get an opportunity. And I appreciate it. But yeah, I do a daily what ifs program, and then I do a news is not for everybody. It's a news format, and talk about all the crazy madness in the news and try to do breaking news as best as I possibly can to all the folks. And it's really taken off, and I've really been blessed by it. So, and just thank you all. Seriously, thank your audience. And yeah, that's what's happening. And I will say this, my last 2 cents here, Rex, on this topic, this whole situation, this whole presentation, this whole podcast. It's kind of interesting that with this gentleman that Mr. McCaslin that went disappearing, it's interesting, the Wright-Patterson connection. And I wanted to throw this in here. The Mr. Tom DeLonge from Blink-182 has actually talked about him, saying terms like the primary advisor of the UFO topic. And it's very compelling that this whole situation is, I think it's the 78th, or was it 70th? Yeah, 78th, I think, since Roswell, right? Anniversary. So you have June the 8th with Trump supposedly doing a reveal of the disclosure situation. And then you also have on the 78th anniversary, this gentleman disappearing. But what's so interesting, he's literally 68 years old, and I always think about 10-year increments. I've went down to some conspiracy rabbit holes with this. I've looked at 10-year gaps. There's always something happening. I've seen, when you look at time travel capabilities, I've seen all kinds of stuff, and I've listened to podcasts coast to coast, and people saying they jumped 10 years. They was claiming that they're part of the Montauk Project. There's all these different things, but I wanted to throw it out there that the Roswell crash was the 78th anniversary, and then you have Trump getting ready to disclose all this. So I think the timing on it could not be more telling about where we are. And I will say this also. My children was listening to literally just Spotify the other day, listening to some Christian music, and all of a sudden, literally every advertisement was talking about, what do you think about the UFO phenomenon? Have you ever seen a UFO? And I've never heard that before. I thought it was strange. And I think the timing of it, your like subconsciousness is getting inundated with it, frequency and all this knowledge, right? They're just constantly plugging it in, and they're pushing a narrative to get us to accept it. And something is going to happen. Something is going to happen, I think. And I think with this Mr. McCaslin disappearing, I think it can't be a coincidence. I think he had literally top tier something clearance that we probably don't even know about. And he probably had a bunch of advanced knowledge in his brain, and he's either wherever he's at, God rest his soul, wherever he's at, I hope that he shows back up. But I do think there's something here, maybe nefarious, who knows? But I really do think there's something to document here in 2026, and who knows what's going to happen the next month or two, especially the next couple months whenever Mr. Trump discloses whatever he's supposed to disclose with his speech. So yeah, there's my long rant. I just want to thank you again for allowing me to be part of the Leak Project here and having a episode here and broadcast with you. And I enjoyed it. So,
yeah. Dude, this is awesome. This is a lot of fun. You're an easy person to talk to and throw ideas back and forth, and I totally appreciate that. And I love how we both have different spiritual beliefs, but in some ways they kind of tie together too. I think that's so cool. I really like to talk to people with different perspectives about things, and you're always very respectful. And one thing I noticed about you when I went on your program is some of the stuff that I had mentioned is kind of outside of those parameters potentially, and you were super respectful about it. And people that were saying mean things in the chat, you were like, hey, respect everybody. And I love that, man. Respect everybody. To an extent, obviously. There's certain people out there that I would have a tough time respecting, but if somebody genuinely believes something and they're doing their best to be a good person and to help others, how can you judge against that, man? I don't think you can. But on that note, folks, you're amazing. I really appreciate you all being here, and subscribe to Brian's channel he's on YouTube, he's on Rumble, he's on Facebook. Look up Visual Disturbance. I'll make sure to put some links in the description, but if you just type in Visual Disturbance, you can pull it up, you can click on it, you could subscribe on it. And I was going to say something else before I finished up, and I don't remember what it was. So I guess we'll use that for a future podcast. Have a beautiful day, everybody. Hit the bell, be well, be kind, rewind, and be the change you want to see.